Hi, everyone. Welcome to the SVK All Women's Food Network. Today is a very special day. I don't need to let everybody know, but I will. On International Women's Day, we have an amazing lineup of guests. My name is Melanie Campbell. I am the Western Regional Manager for Women in Enterprise at TD Bank, and my co-host with me today, I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Liana Robberecht, Corporate Executive Chef for Trico Living Well.
I am so excited. We got to sort of meet our four guests today before we went live and learn a little bit about them. So we'll bring them up and we'll allow each of them to introduce themselves to the show, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I believe we have a little extra time as today is a special day.
So exciting.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hi,
everyone.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Arlene, I'll let you start by introducing yourself.
Great. Again, thanks, ladies, for having me on the show today. It's a real pleasure. It's actually a holiday for me, so it's a really nice way to end my day. My name is Arlene Stein. I run an organization called Terroir Hospitality, and the primary activity of our organization is to throw a hospitality conference that's been going on in Canada for the last 17 years. And we had the pleasure of bringing that live in Calgary last year in 2022. We're going to do it again this year in 2023. We just set our dates. We've got a new theme this year, transformation, transforming our industry from what was sort of a miserable couple of years and continues to be a bit of a struggle, but still lots of champions and a lot of good celebrating going on in our industry. So really delighted. October 1st in Calgary, we're doing that this year.
So exciting.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rossana Caira, and thank you to SVK for hosting this today and for including me in this great panel of women leaders. In my role, I wear two hats, actually. I'm the editor and publisher of Food Service and Hospitality Magazine and Hotelier Magazine, which are two business magazines under the Kostuch Media portfolio. And I'm also co-owner of the company. And then with my other hat, I am the co-founder of the Women in Tourism and Hospitality organization that also hosts an annual summit for women leaders in the hospitality industry every year. We've been doing that for about 7 years. And I won't tell you how long I've been at Kostuch because then I would really date myself. It's a long time. So I'm really honored to be here today.
I'm Eli Cami. I am very honored to be in this room with all of you today. I am a chef and a professor, and I also work in operations and project management, where I go and tell people to eat good food and attend our events in the industry because they're just amazing. And I look forward to continuing this discussion with you today.
Very cool.
Hi, everybody, and thanks very much for having me today on here. I'm Linda Garson. I'm editor-in-chief and publisher of Culinaire Magazine, which is a food and beverage magazine for Alberta. And I'm also the creator of Vine Dine, which are public food and wine pairing dinners that I've been running maybe 10 to 15 a month since 2005 until the pandemic. And now we're down to 6 or 7 because we need the restaurants to be able to staff up fully and be able to take big groups. And I also made a 24-part TV series during the pandemic, which is called Mixology Masters, where I was a judge on that for all 24 episodes. It's very much like Top Chef, but no chefs and no food. It's mixologists and cocktails. We were finding the mixology master, and it's out now. It's been out for about 10 days. Finally, you
Very
can
exciting.
see it on Tubi for free.
That's so cool. That's so amazing. Well, welcome, everybody. We're so happy and thrilled that you can all join us today. And how about we start with a quick round robin and keeping in consideration, because there's so much of us, about keeping some time, brief answers, so we can give everyone enough time to talk. First question B, drum roll. Do you remember the moment when you decided your career path? Dun, dun, dun. And how many paths did it take to get you to where you are now? Was it something you always wanted to do? What do you think about that? And Rossana, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. Well, growing up, in a different era, I think there weren't that many jobs that were kind of visible to a lot of women. So I know in my group, a lot of kids during that those days the girls wanted to be teachers. And for a long time, I thought that's what I wanted to do as well. But it really wasn't what I wanted to do, because I had always had this love of writing, and I knew deep inside me that was really where I wanted to go. And even though it was a tough field for women to enter, that's really where my heart was. So when I went to university, I already knew that I really wanted to write, and I wanted to write specifically for magazines, not newspapers, but magazine feature writing. And so I really knew that right away, in university days. And I also had this distant dream that one day I wanted to own my own magazine. So realistically, I'm thrilled because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm in the field I wanted. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I actually became majority owner of Kostuch Media. So I'm realizing both of those dreams. But I knew that really as a young child. When my parents got me a typewriter at 10 years old, they knew that was my love. And that typewriter kind of opened the door to a lot of creativity for me. So that's where I was. And I was lucky enough to join a company where I grew in various roles, starting as a receptionist and then turning in to be the owner of the company. So it's been a lot of little journeys along the way, but that's how I started.
That's so cool. When I was a kid, my sister and I, we would play teacher at school. She was always like the really mean teacher all the time, always giving me detentions. I don't know. I haven't gotten over that. But we also played restaurant. Like I was always playing restaurant where I was always cooking. Again, she was always the person in charge of everything, all the money and all the things, and always sending food back. I don't know. I have some issues.
Natural leader, Liana.
Yeah, I don't know. But does anyone have any questions about, or any kind of those things that makes you kind of think about when you were a kid and you're like, oh, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a ballerina, I want to be an editor-in-chief?
I understand having like a physical thing that inspires you, but when do you actually realize? Because as you were speaking, Rossana, I was thinking about my career path and how I got into the food industry. And I didn't see the signs until very late. Like I mentioned during our brief interaction before this call, no one taught me how to cook until I decided myself. But when I go back and think about it, I remember certain dishes. I remember certain moments in my life in different parts of the world, in different houses. And then I realized now that, okay, there were signs there, just that my eyes were closed. So besides that, when do you actually know that, yes, this is where I'm headed?
I have to say, I'm envious of people like Rossana who knew from a very young age they were going to do it. I think that's completely incredible. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going in my life. And the truth is I wouldn't want it any other way, because it's an evolution. And, my career path has been kind of linear. I mean, I started in hospitality, started in restaurants, went into catering, did events, did programming. But it all was a journey that I was kind of like more of a passenger. I wasn't the captain of the ship, It was kind of things found me and then I found them. And so, but I've loved it, and I've loved every little bit of that journey. And I think I wouldn't want it any other way.
Arlene, I was just going to ask to sort of piggyback off of that before Linda kind of shares. You said you sort of, it sounds to me like you fell into what you're passionate about, but any great leader that I've ever met in their industry, they all say the same thing, that they didn't set out to be in a leadership role or be seen as a leader. But I find that when someone's truly passionate about what they do, that does come natural and they excel in it. So for yourself, I mean, you put an amazing event on in Calgary that I was able to attend at Terroir, but you really took on a leadership role from the back. Like you weren't at the face of everything, sort of taking credit for everything. You humbly and modestly sort of orchestrated such an amazing event. And to me, you're a natural leader, but now that you're in that seat, what are you most proud of?
For me, building Terroir was about two things. It was about building community and being able to share with my colleagues and really bring together a group of passionate people that were in this industry. But the foundation of it was really about building credibility. And so, we, 30 years ago when we were in this business, it was a pretty crummy business. And there wasn't a lot of people that were passionate about being in it. And it was a stop through. You were a musician, an artist, an actor, a writer, you were going to do something else. And it wasn't going to be your forever job. And that disappointed me, because I knew that I liked it enough that I wanted it to be my forever job. And I just needed to figure out a way to get there. And I wanted to put together a forum that brought people together that could take pride of place, pride of job, and really wanted to seek different opportunities in the industry. So, I mean, that's what it was about.
I love it. Linda, what about you? I know Liana had a loaded question. And so cool. I'm really excited because you talked about your shows, but what are you most proud of?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm most proud of coming to Canada on my own.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not knowing anybody in the country, making all my own decisions, living life on my terms, and succeeding at it. I think.
In a good way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like ethically and authentically.
Yeah.
That's very different.
It's surprising. I mean, I've had sort of two paths, I suppose. I had a marketing company with my partner in Manchester for 22 years. And we had amazing clients, like Rickenbacker, who invented the electric guitar, from Santa Ana in California. So we were always over there a lot. And it was such fun for 16 years to be in the music business, on the periphery of it. And when they changed the way they operated in Europe, I've always been a foodie. I've always been a wine girl. But what's the most fun you can have if it's not the music industry? From my respect, it was the food and wine business, and I'm living my passion. It was always there, but I was always a marketing company. Here, I can live that passion and do all the time. So
that's so awesome. I want to talk to you all day, Linda.
You need to go to her house for a gin tasting.
I'm going to email you very soon.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I probably have 19 open bottles of gin in my fridge as well, if you like gin. And about the same of scotch. I've got about 8 on my table here that I was reviewing last night.
It's getting better. Yes, so good.
Yeah, that's how I was introduced to gin.
It was Linda.
My house.
Yeah.
You're all welcome.
And I've never been the same.
It's so weird. I mean, I can remember, like we're talking 30, 40 years ago, saying to my partner, he was a professional photographer, and we had the marketing company. And I can remember being on holidays, reading the Daily Telegraph and reading the restaurant reviews and saying, wouldn't it be amazing if, I want to write for them. I want to have dinner parties and I want to invite people around and write about that. And you could take the photos and we could pitch this to newspapers and magazines. And I never dreamt in my wildest dream, I didn't need to pitch it. I actually have a magazine. I can do it myself, which is so crazy,
I want to just talk about that for just 1 second, because what you just said takes a lot of courage and a lot of confidence, and you did it. This morning, when I was talking to the students, they were talking about breaking those kind of barriers that you broke. I was talking about I made an example of myself some years ago. I used to be that girl on the sideline crying like, oh, how come no one's inviting me to any of those collaborative dinners, right? And I was pretty sad about it. And then one day I was like, oh, spoiler alert, I can just create my own.
Yes.
Make my own party. I invite my own friends.
Yeah, for sure. You can also go to those parties, because I get the same thing from my students, and they're a little shy. And I was never a shy student at any age. But even moving to this country, not on my own, Linda, I did have help. I was fortunate enough to have help. But then moving on into the career, it's, doing things yourself alone. It's kind of a myth, because you always get help from other people, especially in our industry. And we want to be so involved in each other's lives in every way possible. We also have that. We get way too close, which is great. It turns it into a family. But yeah, I get students being shy, and I tell them all the time, I consistently tell them, be annoying. You want to be at this event, you go and you attend that event. You need to volunteer. You want to volunteer. You want to get in some extra hours. Just go in and ask. It doesn't matter if you've invested $2 or $20,000. Just ask. Go in a room and demand that you are to be in that room.
Yes.
And then it goes from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I volunteered for women chefs and restaurateurs one year. This is over 20 years ago. Then fast forward, I became vice president of the board of that. That impacted and changed my life in the most wonderful way ever. Mm-hmm. It was incredible.
When I'm listening to all of you, each of you have so much experience. And Ellie, you're in front of students, the next generation, specifically women that are going to go into different industries. And we were talking before we went live about how things have improved so much for women since Me Too. But then you sort of opened, like Rossana said, you sort of opened our eyes. We're really shocked that, younger women that are in university or just starting their careers still have some fears and hurdles that we maybe are making the assumption that it is so much better, but in reality it's better, but it's not so much better that we actually, there are some concerns. I don't know who wants to tackle this one first, but what are some things that you think have definitely improved for women in our industries? And then what are some things that you're seeing that are still hurdles or that maybe you've experienced as a woman in your industry?
Yes, it is difficult still. And my generation and the generation of my students that are coming up right now, we have been fortunate enough to not be through the struggles that you who have been for decades in the industry have gone through, but there are still struggles. As I was mentioning earlier before we went live, students are still afraid to talk over or in the same level with their peers. You can be my mentor, but I will still have my own opinion. And if it's wrong and if it will not serve me, then just say that. One of the advantages that we have in today's world, in today's era right now, is, for example, myself being in this room and being heard and being asked an opinion. And this is what I want my students to have. When they come to me and they say, Chef, I need to do this, but my male professor does not agree with this because of that and that, because of society, essentially, that is not a reason. That is absolutely not a reason. As we were talking earlier, you want to be somewhere, just demand that you be there, just as a man demands to be there, or just as a man or a woman who has been in the industry for decades and they have their spot now. And when they walk into the room, no one has to say anything. Everyone should be treated the same way, even in our industry. As lovely as it is tough, but we're tougher as humans. So we decide these rules, we make them. That's what I have to say about it.
Yeah.
I'd like to add that I think one of the biggest challenges we still unfortunately suffer from is women not supporting other women. And I think we need to be allies of ourselves. And I think older women need to support younger women need to support, it's a cycle. And I think that uplifting each other and not shaming each other, not trying to keep each other back or hold each other back is something that we still need to work on.
I would agree, Arlene. And I think from my perspective, sometimes I feel like women are treated as a special interest group, we have to hire more women. And to me, it boggles the mind because, we're like half of the population of the world, and yet we're being treated as a special interest group. And then when we are hired, or, when you look at the progression in the industry, sure, there's a lot more chefs today who are women than there ever were. When I started in the industry, I don't think there were any female chefs, one or two. So that's great progress. But when you look at the progress, it's not always commensurate with what they're earning, because women are still earning so much less than men in the same role. So to me, how does that make sense? We're doing the same job. We're carrying the same load of responsibilities, yet we're being paid less. So I think it's time for everybody to stop looking at us as a special interest group and say, oh, we need to hire more, and just do it and treat women equally to their male counterparts, with the role and the responsibilities, but also where it matters with what they're paying, right?
Can I ask, before we lose that topic, because I've read so much controversial debate on women still, the pay gap and women being paid less. And I try to read through everything. But I also, in the leadership roles that I've had in the past, one thing that I've noticed is that when the men on the team that I have served apply for a role, they have very high expectation on the salary and they ask for it. Yeah. The women that I coach, when they're applying for a role, they're almost ready to prepare to accept the minimum salary just to get that job. So some of it is coaching the women that I've worked with, and I'm not saying all women are like that, but the ones that are ready to accept a role for whatever salary is offered to them. I'm wondering, I know you've done some research, being in your industry. Do you think that it could be some of the contribution of where that pay gap is because women just aren't asking for more or what they're worth, what they know they're worth? They're afraid to ask for more?
I think you're right. I think women don't have the confidence to stand up and ask for what they want. There's also, when we've hosted our conferences, this comes up time and time again, that you could have a woman and an equivalent male counterpart going for the same job. The woman won't think she's ready for that job because she doesn't have all of the qualifications, whereas her male counterpart might only have 40% of the qualifications, but they'll go for the job thinking that they might get it. Whereas the woman, she might meet all of the hot buttons of what that job is about, but she doesn't feel that she is ready for that promotion or that job. So I think a lot of it does come from confidence and lack of confidence in ourselves as women sometimes. And I'm not saying that every woman feels that way, but I think overall over the years, there has been this feeling that women don't have the strength and the confidence in themselves to go for that.
Isn't it also, Rossana, though, a condition of being polite and being told to be nice and told to be quietly by the side, right? We're not trained to be aggressive.
No. Yeah. And when you are aggressive, then you're noted for being aggressive. So you kind of
Yeah.
And you're afraid of being penalized for that.
Yeah. Sure. I brought up this example on one of the cooking competition shows a few years ago, Top Chef. One of my old sous chefs was on the girls versus boys, season. And she was, against somebody else. And every decision she made, all her social media comments were, oh, she's a princess, she's rude, she's a bitch, she's this, that. On his comments, he's a leader, he knows what he wants, he's, organized, making the same decisions.
Yeah. Classic. That's a classic comparison. But isn't another issue in our industry specifically, isn't it what the pays are? Like, what are we offering for the positions that we are working for? Because when I worked in a restaurant, I was scrubbing and cooking, and it was not worth the money. And it is still not worth the money. No. I get a lot of joy from making food and selling food and offering food for free, of course. But isn't it what we are offering in this industry as payment for our chefs and servers and sous chefs and bus boys? Yeah. There's also that. Because if I'm going from a part-time sous chef to a full-time sous chef, the difference in pay is maybe you're getting less as a full-timer. To talk about specifics. As a full-timer, you're probably getting less because you have healthcare and whatever. But as a part-timer and you are on call as if you were a doctor, yes, you are getting, more hours, more pay, but you're being exhausted. So there's also this. That's what I think, at least. So I don't know how we can better that.
Well, that comes with work culture.
Yeah. Can I just come back to a comment that Rossana made earlier? I'm sort of just going back a bit now, about women being treated as special cases. Yeah. And there's why. And it's a fascinating thing because a few years ago, we did an article at this time of year on women brewers. And it was for the International Women's Day, and the women brewers make these beer. It's Pink Boots Day, and they make these beers. And we thought, oh, this is fascinating. Let's support that, and let's talk about women brewers. And we did, and we got quotes from them all. And then we got such backlash the backlash was from the women brewers who said, no, we don't want to be singled out as women brewers. We want to be written about as good brewers. Whether we're women or not, we are good brewers. And I thought, oh, you know, I learned so much from that we thought we were doing the right thing, and we weren't at all. And it was a shock so at the time.
That's profound, Linda, though. And I think, like, I kind of feel that way too, because sometimes when you win an award or something in the workplace, the work culture is, you know, first female manager or first female executive or first female chef, and congratulations, or you know, top woman leader. And I'm of that same mindset. I like can't I be recognized for just being really great in my industry?
Yes.
And then other people will say, well, you know what, Melanie, though, we're trying to get to that point where we no longer have to put women in front of that. So that's kind of a debatable topic right there in itself, because you know, it's like mom what's that new term everybody's using, a mom entrepreneur? Some women find that highly offensive. We don't say a dad entrepreneur, but then other women say, yes, but you know, women typically have more responsibilities when they're, you know, studies show that women tend to take on more household and parenting responsibilities. So I mean, that's another term that is kind of very debatable as well. I see you all nodding your heads. Does anyone want to, like, I love that you said that, Linda, because you learned from that, right? Like,
absolutely.
Some women were so offended by that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the right or wrong answer is. Is it okay to put women in front of everything? Or is it offensive? I don't know.
We thought we were celebrating them, but and we'd done it previously with women restaurant owners the year before. And nobody said a thing then. Everybody supported it, but people just want to be known for being good at what they do, not for being women good at what they do.
I'm not sure about putting the women in front of, you know, that selection, but I definitively think we have to be conscientious about putting women forward. And if you think about awards, if you think about sort of platitudes that go out in our hospitality industry, especially amongst chefs, if we weren't conscientious about putting women forward, they would just never cease to exist. And it's not that they don't exist, they're there. And we have to be thoughtful about making sure that we're actually appreciating them and we're actually celebrating them. And so the more and more that happens, it will become second nature. But currently, it still has to be thought of.
Yeah. And it's 2023. It's not the 1800s.
Yeah.
Shock. And we're allowed to vote.
If we were in the States, we wouldn't have control over our own bodies.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Mind blowing.
There's also that.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's scary.
Wow.
So I was just on that note. I saw Rossana, you're nodding your head. We did talk a little bit about, you know, how things have changed for women. And I'm sure you've done a lot of interesting sort of interviews and you've met a lot of interesting people in your life, in your career. Sort of where have you felt that you've had the most growth? Because I'm sure you can draw from so many different experiences.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, as I mentioned, I've been at, you know, the one company all my life doing various different roles, but probably where I've assumed the most growth is when I became publisher in addition to being editor. I mean, for years I was in the editorial department, you know, as a writer, as an assistant editor, as editor. But when I became publisher in addition to the editor, I think that just kind of made me appreciate how hard it was to run a business, and that there are so many different factors that come into play when you're actually running the business component and not just the editorial department. So all of a sudden you're focused on sales, you're focused on expenses, you're focused on circulation and who's reading your magazines. So I think that that job promotion to publisher really kind of changed the way I saw myself as well, and just allowing me to learn so much more about the entire business side of it. And as anybody who runs a small business knows, there's so many different components in doing so, and there's so many different challenges. So it gave me a better appreciation of the entire business, and it allowed me to grow, where I got to then put on this different role where I had to launch new parts of the businesses to keep it going and to keep it evolving. So it really took me out of that, I don't want to say the cocoon of editorial, but it really kind of expanded my horizons to really understand the business world.
Who's the most favorite, one of your favorite people that you've had an opportunity to help publish?
When you say help publish, you mean as a freelancer?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We've had so many freelancers over the years. I mean, it's hard to really put one person. But we did start careers of many writers and photographers. I mean, we have a photographer named Margaret Mulligan who's gone on to do really, really wonderful work. And we gave her first start doing cover photography for our magazine. So she always, you know, when she reaches out, she always says, oh, you gave me my first big break. So we've done a lot of that. And we've also catapulted a lot of women in the editorial department who came in as a staff writer and then went on to do really, really wonderful work. Rebecca Harris, who for years led Marketing Magazine. She started off as one of my, writers in the beginning and not in freelance, but in the department. We've had so many women along the road that have really got their first start at our magazine. It'd be hard to single out each one, but it's very gratifying when you see photographers and writers who have gone on to really great things that you opened a little bit of the door to. So that makes you feel very good.
Wow. We have about, hard to believe, we only have about 10 minutes left in this incredible hour here. Do you think that we could wrap up and talk about role models and people, mentors that have influenced your careers, and maybe just end with a little piece of advice for our viewers? And Arlene, we can start with you and go around.
We got this question in advance, and I actually it was the one that stumped me the most.
What?
Because it's
there's so many.
That's the problem. I've had so many great mentors. I've actually been very, very lucky in my career to have amazing female bosses, powerful, strong, really great leaders, people that took me under their wing, inspired me, like really let me flourish in a way that was very positive. So and aside from that, I just had the pleasure of working and meeting, and because of the conference, so many amazing, especially women. I'm always inspired by so many amazing women. So including all of you. And so really, and that's just not, trying to be nice. I'm constantly amazed at how wonderful and supportive people can be. And I've just been lucky in that regard.
But do you think that the most important thing is for advice is to people to reach out, have a friend, have a mentor, have a buddy, and really check in? Like, how important is that in your life, in your career, personal, professional?
Yeah, I think intentional mentorship is absolutely essential. And I would suggest to anybody to do that. And to be honest with you, I get calls now from people, when I have for a while, wanting to pick my brain, have coffee, have advice. And I don't know that I've ever turned anybody down. You know,
my answer is always yes.
Yeah,
always yes.
You have to. It's paying it forward, isn't it?
Yes. And I've mentored for Futurepreneurs since 2009. That is a nationwide organization for young entrepreneurs. And I'm a total volunteer. I started in 2009, and the first person they gave me was a physiotherapist in Douglasdale. I had no idea where Douglasdale was, and I didn't really know what would make a physiotherapist successful. But I was a mentor. And in that year, he won Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Canada with Futurepreneur. Wow. And we were so thrilled. So I've continued. So cool. It spurred me on to mentor more, and I've mentored people since then, since 2009, just volunteering.
Wow. Ellie.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a sort of different, I'm going to keep it short. I have a sort of different view on mentorship because I never chose just one person. I am very grateful. Yeah, exactly. But it is sort of pushed onto you when you are young and you are starting something. It's sort of pushed onto you by specific people, and they're like, do what I tell you. You're going to be great. And I'm like, but I'm not like you. So to what Arlene said, I'm inspired by all of you in this room, and I'm inspired by people in general in my life as I go through this path. Yes, I do have women that I turn to in difficult times or in joyous times, and obviously one of them is my mom, and she will forever be for as long as she's alive and breathing, maybe even after. But yes, on mentorship, there's so many people that you can get inspired from. And I have continue to work for amazing women leaders that have taught me so much directly and indirectly. But yes, I'm grateful for my mom, I guess.
Yeah. She gave you life. You owe her. Hello.
I owe her. I owe her. Yeah, and she's probably watching. So yeah, my phone is on silent. So I don't need to hear it.
Rossana.
That's a hard one because, I've been in a smaller company. One of my, I think, most influential mentors was Mitch Kostuch, who was the owner and founder of Kostuch Media. Sadly, he passed away about 7 years ago. But Mitch was always probably my biggest supporter in the company. He always gave me so much opportunity. And not only opportunity, but he gave me so much leeway to just do what I wanted to do and be as creative as I wanted to be and launch new things. He was always there just supporting me. And that never was, that never failed through any of the time that he and I worked together. In the earlier days, I did have one of the publishers who was a woman. Her name was Laurel Cullen. And she was very supportive of me as well. And she was a very dynamic personality. And if you ever met her, you can never forget her. And she gave me, I think, a lot of confidence in those early days to do what I needed to do. So those two would probably be my most important. And I really believe in mentorship, as Arlene said, in terms of formalized mentorship as well. And I've been part of the George Brown mentorship program for several years now. And I've mentored, a few people in that program. I actually ended up hiring one of those mentees over time, and she became part of my team. So that was wonderful, and it really gave me a different appreciation of the whole mentorship role. So I think everybody should have mentorship as part of their business profile, because I think it's not only what you can give the mentee. I think it's what the mentee can also give you.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really important.
And also, I really feel, and I said this today at State on the panel, I really believe they should teach a class on empowerment.
Yeah, we should start it. We should start it here on SVK.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, we have literally 2 minutes. Mel, wrap it up. Take it home.
We didn't get a chance to hear from Linda really quickly.
Oh.
In terms of, sorry, I was talking about being a mentor. Okay. I stumbled along on my own.
That's
really,
okay.
so.
The irony of all of this is some of the best mentors in my life have actually all been men. And I think that it's important to note that, because we actually need more male mentors mentoring women. And I've read a lot of studies about, as a result of the Me Too campaign, a lot of men have actually, the studies that have indicated from Lean In organization, and McKinsey put out a report that men are more reluctant now to actually take charge of mentoring women. And what the studies show is 70% of men want to mentor and advocate for women, but they want the woman to actually come to them and say, will you be my mentor, versus men approaching the woman and saying, I'd like to mentor you. So I think it's important to note that as women, especially the younger generation, that not all men, but a lot of studies are showing that as a result of Me Too, some men are afraid to initiate mentoring women. So we have to be aware of that as women. I want to thank all of you for being on today's show. It's an incredible opportunity to listen to each of your experiences. And happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day. Don't forget Terroir, September 30th, October 1-2. Check it out. Look it up.
And if any of you know an amazing woman in the food industry, whether she's a woman-led business or she is a female entrepreneur in this industry, let us know, because we're looking for our next guest for next month's show. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy the day.
Bye.
You too.
Bye. Thanks.